You're listening to the Middlemen podcast, this week with Tom Lemongello and Todd Sawicki.
Hello, Tom. Good to talk to you again. Another exciting episode of the Middlemen this week.
Hey, Todd.
And I'm glad we're getting finally to talk about something that is near and dear to your heart. And, we're going to talk about Dollar General and their retail media network. And you should tell the our listeners, your own history here, because this is really your story as much as it's the Dollar General story.
Yes, all of our listeners, our watchers, our AI readers. The reason that I love Dollar General was that we actually have been able to this summer and fall basically to interview all three of the big customers that we had. We had Albertsons with Brian Monahan. We just had Bobby Watts from Ahold Delhaize. But Dollar General, for me, was the one customer I learned the most. And the reason
Customer when you were at Quotient.
Yeah, so I was at Quotient. This would have started in, I think probably like 2019 was when I first started working on the Dollar General business. I learned what it is like to move out of the grocery world that I was already working in and move into the dollar category. The value conscious shopper meant that you had a different disposition. They were going to the store for paper towels rather than milk, or like this was a different shop. This was also a different loyalty level. Not everybody was swiping a loyalty card at the register. So the level of ID transactions was much lower. And so what had to be built over time with companies like Cardlytics, Bridg, and LiveRamp and others was an even stronger identity backbone to understand who the customers were. And that has really positioned DG and DGMN, the Dollar General Media Network, into something that is not only national, because they have 20,000 stores, but it's also covering parts of the country that are very hard to reach, parts of the socioeconomic class of the country that is underserved and underbanked. And so really for me, it's on many, many levels, it is a really cool case study in how difficult retail media can be. And I'm just excited to just listen to how Austin is working at it now that it is 2025, and they are at a place where they have all cylinders firing.
It's really an interesting story to your point, where as we think about retail media and retail media expanding, it sort of its origins go back to Tesco and dunnhumby.
Yep.
In the loyalty programs led to retail media, and it started with grocery and it started with loyalty data, and so many other retailers didn't have that system, those relationships in place. And it's an interesting story to how do you build retail media, to your point, where you're not grocery and you're adjacent. Like Dollar as a category is adjacent to retail media, convenience stores, or even another adjacent category. Then you've obviously got hardware, you've got other retail categories.
Yep.
And I think this is what's fascinating about, as an outsider to retail, is the diversity. Just like there's diversity in publishers, there's diversity in retailers, and hearing their stories and how they're going to have to build differently to achieve that same core backbone around identity and attribution, consistent with the way that it was originally inspired and built around grocery, is, I think, a fascinating story. And I think we're going to see more diversity and more of these types of stories across the retail landscape as retail media becomes universal across the retail landscape.
Yeah, just because it's harder doesn't mean that not every type of retailer is going to want to do retail media. So, you got to roll up your sleeves. And this is a great episode to listen to how that was done. All right. Well, welcome to the Middlemen podcast. We're here with Austin Leonard from Dollar General Media Network. Tell us what it's been like. You've been there for how long?
So I'm just finishing up 4 months. So, which is in retailer land, that's basically like 3 years.
I think that, for me, this is kind of like a series of 3 episodes that are like companies that I worked with when I was at Quotient. So we had Brian Monahan on from Albertsons Media Collective. We just did a recording with Bobby Watts from Ahold, and now we're getting to do Dollar General with you. And I'm excited because Dollar General was kind of my favorite. It was the most complicated and the least understood of the retailers, but with so much potential and promise. So I wanted for you to just give us like give us the stats. Most people are just, even if you're a shopper of DG, you may not understand the
Well,
scale.
and I don't think a lot of people even understand what it is as a business and what people think. So don't assume everyone
Yeah,
knows DG through and through. So kind of,
even
give the
DG, the
whole background.
acronym, a
Tom's a
lot of people
retail
don't know.
guy. I'm a media guy. So all you retailers are like, whatever. I don't know what's. I know a grocery store when I see it, but so it's good to give some context to DG as a business and an entity and so forth beyond just even retail media.
Yeah, and we're evolving fast too. So that's the fun part. As I've been learning a lot more, because I also had my own consumer perceptions, and then obviously I've been in the industry, understanding what Dollar General is a store, how it fits in the competitive ecosystem. And then obviously as part of Dollar General Media Network, which we call DG Media Network or DGMN, depending on what the context is and how many times I've repeated the acronym. And it's been really fascinating to really see the growth of the business. So just to level set, we've got over 20,000 stores across 48 states, and we serve 90 plus million unique customer profiles. We did $40 billion in sales last year. We saw 2 billion transactions. So it's a lot of sales and it's a lot of trips. And we cover a whole bunch of markets that many retailers either can't or won't be able to reach or be able to cover. And the stat that you'll hear a lot is that 75% of Americans live within 5 miles of a DG store. And so that's a big suburban and urban footprint.
So you've been doing the circuit. You've been on the CPG guys. You've been on with Curie Masters, and I think there was a lot of talk about rural. But it's good to hear you say suburban, because it's kind of like you have the DMAs that you might target media on, but there's so many other parts of the country that you guys cover. And for those of you watching video, we're going to show a map of that coverage. Talk to us about that scale and what it does for you, and then talk about that it's a grocery store. It's also sort of a convenience store. Tell us how you characterize the footprint.
Yeah, we cover a lot of different segments, a lot of different types of trips. We like to bill ourselves as America's neighborhood general store. So in many of our communities, we're the only general market or grocery store that's within that actual community. So that's part of why the rural story is really interesting, as you think about the places that we cover where there's no other options, where we've been able to bring fresh food to different markets, to over 7,000 stores. So when you think about that, we're actually the largest grocery store. So we have more than any other U.S. mass retailer by location count. And some of that's just...
Yeah, so 20,000 stores makes you bigger than McDonald's and Starbucks.
Yeah.
And then 7,000 makes you bigger than what? Is it all grocers? Is there a grocer with that many stores?
There's not. Yeah. So not in the US, especially across mass retailers. Yeah.
I think the convenience angle, when I was working at Quotient on this, instead of when you go into grocery, it's like, oh, you've got to make sure that the milk is at the back so that people go and get that. And then they see the rest of the store. So that, in-store entertainment loop of discovering all the aisles. That with Dollar General was paper towels originally, but now you've got a situation where you have grocery as well. So I feel like the only constant with DG has been evolution. You just keep evolving, and you're initially just owning that convenience trip. Now you're owning, events like Halloween, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got the fill-in trips, we've got your stock-up trips. Our customers use us for many different things. Our core customers, they're often lower income in a lot of those rural markets, but there's also a lot of different reasons that they use us from a convenience factor. So we provide, in our low cost model, we provide really deep discounted prices, great deals on all the same brands that you can get at a lot of other stores, but we also do it in a very convenient fashion. So our stores are quick and easy to park at, to get in and get out. So you can do quick trips, especially if you know exactly the 5 to 7 things that you need right away. It's easy to navigate, and they're super convenient because, again, they're within 5 miles of pretty much everyone across the U.S., 75% for the official stats. But that makes it really interesting when you think about not just the basic retailing experience, but when you start to think about where we're going from an e-commerce standpoint, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's a big part of the journey. I do think a lot of folks, they hear Dollar General, they think of dollar stores. So everything's under a dollar. And so while that's part of our history in the past of really trying to focus on saving money that way, and we have thousands of items every single day under a dollar still, we also have all of the brands that they trust and that they're looking for. And many times it's a decision of like, hey, do I go to the store that's 5 minutes away from me, Or do I need to get the family in the car and go, 20, 30, 40 minutes or even longer in some of the communities that we serve? And so there's a lot of different ways that people our customers like to use the convenient options that we give them.
So that's sort of what you mean by the fill-in trips, right?
Yeah, fill-in trips is like, hey,
So
I did my big stock up, and I do that big stock up every 2 weeks, but I need more cereal. I ran out of bread or eggs, which is part of why the fresh food expansion has been such a great addition for the communities that we serve.
So I'm going to jump in here as the media guy. You retailer guys talking about things like trips is not the language we use in media land. And so it's interesting to talk about that is in terms of understanding how retailers think, right? In terms of how they model consumer behavior. In the media world, we talk about clicks and conversions and funnel and in consumption paths. And it'd be interesting to understand, like, what does that mean to a non-media, right? To media people, what is a trip and what does that define? And is that how you're modeling and trying to sell retail media around, like, oh, we're targeting trips. And so if I'm a media buyer, is that something I better understand now if I'm going to work with DGMN?
Yeah, I think as consumers, we all naturally do this. Hey, what do we need? What are we searching for? How urgent is it? And we go through that decision set in our heads. For those of us that are really, really e-commerce heavy shoppers, that could be going to different websites. But it's also, do you go to the website or do you just go into the store? And so I think trips of essentially your opportunity to win that we call the basket. So that shopping trip.
Yeah.
So it's your opportunity to win that specific shopping trip, which is obviously there's the share of the wallet that the retailer is going for. And so whether it's an e-commerce visit or it's an in-store visit, that's a trip. So if you're just an e-commerce retailer, you're really focused on website traffic, the number of people, your conversion rate. And those are the same things that translate over to the physical store, which from a media standpoint is an opportunity for you to influence that consumer, to talk to that consumer, to share your brand story, or just, make sure that they know that your product's available and in stock.
I imagine the primary way consumers interact with DG is through the in-store visit. And as they build out DGMN, how much of that is part of the plan and strategy, and now to give some context to you is that Tom and I have been geeking out on the in-store opportunity for retailers for a while now. And I think it's really fascinating to think about the convenience store experience, which, I think to your point, to DG transitioning itself from the dollar store to the convenience store or the grocery convenience store as an opportunity. And one of the interesting things that comes from the convenience store model is the impulse purchase, the willingness to consider new items, which obviously if you're in retail media is a huge opportunity to get sampling behavior, to get trial behavior, to conquest new customers. And so it'd be curious to hear your perspective on in-store as a component of DGMN as it's probably core to its business historically is the in-store experience versus e-commerce, even as it's trying to grow e-commerce now as a channel.
Yeah, so we have really savvy customers. So again, the core customer that we serve is typically on a budget, like most families are, especially these days. And they're looking to make sure that they get the most out of their money and that they can put food on the table, they can keep their homes clean, and they're really looking to stretch those budgets. So they're using a lot of those digital tools to do that. And the in-store experience may be where they check out, but we've got millions of people that are using our app, using our website. And so we've built a lot of digital tools in there so that they make it easy for them to see what the latest deals are, the latest new items, promotions. You mentioned Halloween earlier. They're also, they're trying to figure out how do they make the most of their dollars and celebrate some of the key moments throughout the year that matter to them and their family and their communities. So for example, we've got a shopping list feature. And we'll talk about e-commerce, and I'm excited to talk about that. But even just the core trip, from an e-commerce standpoint, our shoppers are searching the app, looking at the different items, comparing within the app digitally, just like any other e-commerce place, and they can then add it to their digital shopping list. And that tool allows them to pre-plan for those trips, so they know exactly how much they're going to spend.
So it seems like you have two different cohorts. You have the traditional people who are, the BFFs who are coming to the store and, they're buying their items and then they don't come back for a week or they come back on the fill-in trip. But now you have this new cohort, particularly with your partnership with DoorDash, where they're not only looking on the app to discover maybe their, figure out their shopping list, they're actually completing the whole transaction and getting it delivered to their home. So to me, it's almost like a perfect experiment of seeing the sort of maybe the more traditional cohort and the newer cohort. What is that doing for your business?
So we started with DoorDash back in 2021, and that was when we first entered the DoorDash marketplace. And what we have been very vocal about, as we've shared, is that we've been really happy with the incrementality through that channel. And we've expanded that out to obviously thousands of stores. And we also joined Uber Eats Marketplace earlier this year as well, because they have a different audience. And so the way that we're thinking about those partners is that it is definitely introducing Dollar General to folks that are, especially the Dash Pass shoppers. Those are folks that are very loyal to that community. That's how they like to shop. And that's been a new channel for us. But what it's also done is really shown that our customers are looking for those time-saving advantages as well. And so we actually launched DG Delivery. It's our first-party delivery. We launched that earlier this year, and we publicly said that we'll be in over 16,000 stores by the end of the year. In the way that I think about that, because it is definitely a new option, a lot of the DoorDash and Uber Eats marketplace things, those are great incremental new customer drivers. DG Delivery is also allowing us to serve our customers better, helping them to save time and money. And many of these customers have not been able to take advantage of the e-commerce wave. For those that have lived in the urban markets, that typically that's where you go first as an e-commerce provider, because you can get a lot more orders quicker and it's easier, and they don't have the network out into suburban and rural areas. So our communities that we serve have typically been underserved by the entire wave. And we're essentially building the last mile of e-commerce for the last mile of America. And that's a very important thing, because that last mile of e-commerce is where brands have been very focused on winning, especially, since 2020. And we believe that there's a whole subsection of the country that they're missing out on. And we're bringing that.
Does that speak to retail, to bring it back to retail media more specifically? Then is that where you're trying to from a targeting standpoint, a campaign standpoint, is that kind of the focus now then? Is how do I get, right? That's the benefit to Tom's comment is a pure digital experience. It's something you can obviously target with retail media. And is that kind of now the focus point of where you're trying to go, which is these digital first or digital exclusive experiences as a mechanism to go back to your vendors and brands and say, hey, here's a new opportunity for you that didn't exist. And so is that kind of the focal point for him at the moment?
It's a very big focal point for DG Media Network. So the core part is that as e-commerce has grown, that's become the primary source of growth for brands for both points of distribution and actually overall sales. So they've been over allocating dollars to fund e-commerce, many of them, because that's a big growth lever. Also, as a digital shopper, if you get in that basket on the first or second trip, you're going to be much stickier, because then the algorithm will recommend you more. The repeat purchases that us as consumers like to do, a lot of times it's easier to just start with what we already had in there. And so for us, you've got a new opportunity now with a whole new subset of customers to be first in basket. And so we're helping our partners do that as we start with DG Delivery. And, we also have all the tools that drive sales across the in-store experience, but now we're truly an omnichannel retailer. So it gives us an opportunity to bring new value to the brands from an advertising standpoint, and also to our customers to bring them new experiences and help save them money.
So I think this starts to open the door to the conversation of sort of like, what's your tech stack and who are the partners you work with? So obviously that new cohort, super easy to close that loop and it's all within one logged in system. But you've done a lot of work to make the in-store experience also connect to your loyalty program. So not just offering coupons, but doing things like credit card tokenization and all sorts of things that some of the other grocers or whatever haven't gotten to. So I would love to hear you talk about sort of the partners that you have at DGMN.
Yeah, and overall, Dollar General has invested a lot into that back end. Just like you said, it's part of our flywheel, and the core program is My DG. So that is our loyalty program. That is how we help people organize, save money. But it also allows us to learn more about their shopping habits, to be able to deliver them consistent value, and also from an insights and data perspective, allows us to help be able to serve them relevant messaging. And so that we've been building on since 2018. And as they relaunched the media network a couple of years ago, uh, very different from other partners. They did not have as much digital experience. There wasn't e-commerce, and so it was a very much an offsite first business. The vast majority of what our tactics offered was offsite through the trade desk. We can tap into Meta, maybe some Google shopping campaigns, and we've really continued to evolve that to be able to build on the strong foundation that we've had. We actually launched Kevel earlier this year to help upgrade our on-site display experience. We've got Criteo that helps power on-site sponsored product ads and also some of our commerce display. And so we've built this really strong foundation from a tactical perspective. And then the work that we've done since 2018 on our back end from a data and identity standpoint allows us to also do very sophisticated measurement. So we've been following the IAB measurement standards throughout once they became official in 2024, but we've also been right there at the forefront in really making sure that we're bringing holistic measurement, and we're following all of the IAB standards so that our brands can trust what they're seeing, and we can help show them the incremental sales that we're driving, as well as the standard media metrics that they would come to expect.
So on the ID resolution part of it, because this is interesting to our audience. So who do you work with there? What does that sort of do in terms of the measurement capabilities? Because it'd be interesting to hear sort of, yes, you're using IAB standards. Does that go fully omnichannel? What does that look like today? Where's that going? So
Yeah, Dollar General uses Bridg to help identify and then target in-store customers that aren't in the loyalty programs, tying that have the digital profile. We will also work with LiveRamp from a data collaboration and from a measurement standpoint, and including our data clean room capabilities. And so that ecosystem, when you are able to pull it all together, allows us to do measurement in a different way, and obviously just do typical retail media closed loop reporting. But also with the 21,000 stores, the footprint, it allows us to really get extremely targeted. We can cover a lot of different geos that they can't get in a standard ad buy. Over 50% of the audiences that we have within the trade desk are incremental to any other third-party data provider that's in the trade desk. And so that allows us to bring a lot of unique audiences and reach to the brands.
It's interesting you talk about marketing your audiences in trade desk. A lot of retail media networks are not promoting their audiences that way. They're using trade desk for offsite targeting, but they're not necessarily explicitly sort of promoting themselves through, which is these segments and these data profiles, which is typical in publisher media land. Like, this is the way most publishers get people to sample their media, to use a retailer type of phrase. There's sort of the sampling experience from media buying that's often typical. So it's interesting you're using that tactic, a very traditional publisher tactic, to attract interest in your network as a place to go spend dollars.
Yeah, and I think that's where the expectations of brands have really changed. So when you a couple years ago, if you started a retail media network, it was really easy to focus on the shopper teams. Managed service is really key, and a big part of our business too. There's a lot of our teams that need us to run those campaigns. But brands have gotten to a place, both organizationally and with their agencies, where they want to have hands-on keyboard for the vast majority of what they're doing. And they want to be able to access it in the platforms where they're doing their national media buying so that they can be more sophisticated. They can actually tie those strategies together. So as a fast follower to retail media and being able to build those tools, we really lean into that. And especially what I've done as I've come here and talked to our brand partners and asked them what they need from us. They've been very vocal on, hey, you guys have really leaned into what you built with the trade desk and with LiveRamp to make your audiences available. And we're trying to make it easier for them to include us in their plans because we're such a big part of their business from a sales side, but also from a media standpoint. We're a core part of any buy that covers the entire U.S. If you don't have DG, you're missing out on large portions of the U.S. in both customer count and also geographically.
Well, that's fascinating. It's interesting because one of the questions that has emerged across retail media land is, how do I track more of those national dollars? How do I track more of those traditional media budgets that aren't sort of shopper budgets or trade budgets? And it's funny, you're talking about being a fast follower. Actually, if you're leveraging and promoting your audiences in trade desk and via LiveRamp, that actually isn't fast follower. That's actually a bit of a leading. You're a leader in that regard. I think if I were to interview a number of other retail media folks and ask that question, are you making your audiences available in trade desk for just general targeting? 9 out of 10 wouldn't be. So pat yourself on the back a little bit more in that regard of being more of a leader in that, because I think that's an interesting tactic that we can promote to other retail media platforms, to saying, hey, if you're trying to get more visibility on national dollars against these national brand campaigns and these budgets, a way to surface yourself is through these audience segments and is through these data programs inside a platform like Trade Desk, where you can say, hey, again, as the media guy, as these planners and programmatic campaign managers are in Trade Desk, they're trying to figure out what audiences are available, where they can be targeting, and they do queries and say, oh, they can see it. Look at Dollar General. This is a great, I didn't know that they had their data available. Oh, look where they're giving me market coverage where I didn't necessarily have that before in different, DMAs and et cetera. And so I think that's an interesting thing to promote to across the retail landscape of others can be doing this too, as a way to, how do I get in front of these national buyers? Well, they're logged into Trade Desk, and here's a way to do that.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that attracted me here. When you think about the growing omnichannel story, and when Tony Rogers, my CMO, when he called and asked if I was interested in talking about the opportunity, he started telling me the story. And as I've explored more, again, there's a really strong foundation here. There's a really unique story to tell. It's a very national footprint. So there was a lot of things from just a media standpoint that helps build a lot of credibility for retail media network at Dollar General, and for us to be part of those plans. And then as I learned more about the tech stack and the tools, they're not like, we're not getting enough credit for a lot of the work that we've done. And it's fun story to tell. So you mentioned earlier, Tom, that's why I've been, getting the opportunity to do a lot of these different podcasts and press opportunities, because I think it's an awesome story to tell, and most people haven't heard it yet. So my job as the GM is to help make sure that people understand that they're missing out if they're not really leaning into Dollar General.
So let's keep going with that, because when you're talking to me at grocery shop, I was obviously excited to talk to you about this. But you mentioned something about getting to investment grade, and so I want Todd to hear this. Get investment grade media with brands. So what's the challenge there? What's still left to do to make that a reality? And then can we laugh a little bit about what is investment grade and what isn't? So.
Yeah, and I do not get any credit for that term. That comes from our supplier, our brand community. And I think very basic, what they want to do is they want to be able to take media and compare it against their other media options and media spends. If you don't have the ability to give them the third-party tracking, if you're not following the IAB, if you're not MRC accredited, those are all things that make it harder for you to compete with the national options that are out there, the Googles and the Metas of the world. And they're not able to invest their dollars from a purely marketing and media standpoint. And then it becomes more of a trader shopper conversation. And I think that most retailers are going through the same journey, and they're all at different stages. But what I've come in and seen is that we need to address those things, especially as we've got this great growing pool of on-site inventory that we know that the brands want to be able to tap into to talk to our customers and help drive sales and brand awareness. But they also need to make sure that it's media that stacks up against their other media options. And that's when it becomes investment grade. If you can invest your national media dollars, because it's media, it's not just a trade or a shopper investment, that's where you can actually grow a real business. And it becomes a partnership with them, because we can do things that the other media platforms can't, but we can also do the media things that they need in order to show that it's actually a media investment and not a trade or shopper investment.
Well, I think the key thing there, and we've been telling this story a lot over the last year plus that we've been having these discussions on the Middlemen, which is, how do retailers attract those national dollars? What's necessary to do that? And we've talked a lot about retailers as publishers. You have to look and talk like a publisher. You have to act more like this. And the language and things you're describing are effectively that. Like, look, hey, if you're selling to the people who normally buy from publishers, you better walk, talk, and act and look like what they're used to buying. And I think you're
exactly.
What's nice about your story here with DGMN is this, hey, if you act and talk and look like a publisher and you plug into the places where they normally buy national media from publishers, you too can get bought. And so I think that's kind of, I think, good confirmation of what we've been saying, which is, if you do that, success can follow.
Yeah, and well said, Todd. I think it's really important that you have a unique story to tell, and as a retailer, you tell your story. And I think we've got a great story to tell. Then you have to make it easy to buy. And I'm really focused on how do I make it easier for the brands that we partner with to buy however they want to buy, and hands on keyboard. We've got great teams that run campaigns for them, new tools that we've been focused on. And just really, as I like to say, we're leveling up. So it's Dollar General Media Network level up season.
I think a lot of times, to my comment about patting yourself on the back, which is you feel like you're a fast follower, you feel like you're catching up, and maybe with regards to Amazon and Walmart, everyone is in that bucket. But in the world of that non-Amazon Walmart community of retail media networks, I would argue you're much more leading edge in your willingness to adapt yourself to the norms of media buying, to the norms of media selling. And credits to DG for pursuing that and having success. And just to my earlier comment of, hey, retailers, if you want to capture more dollars and if you want to capture brand dollars, we've been saying this as the playbook, and here's proof, right? DG has come in and they're willing to embrace traditional media selling and traditional media buying. And if you do that, look, buyers will show up. And I think that's an important lesson here. And yes, you have the advantage of you have a national footprint. That definitely helps. On the national media buyer, scale does matter, right? It's a hard truth, or you need to have super specific inventory that is incredibly valuable, and therefore they're going to go out of their way to find you and buy it. But so your ability to say, hey, we've got this unique audience, we've got these unique touch points, and yet we do it at scale, is a compelling story. Having myself sold media in the past, I think you guys are selling in the way that media buyers are used to hearing and wanting to buy. So kudos to you and what you're doing and how you're helping them transition and be successful and grow that 15% that's not Amazon and Walmart. And so it becomes 15, 30, 50%, which we fully expect it to become over time.
And that's before we even talk about the in-store media portion.
Right. We're super excited. Like, I can't wait for you guys to have 20,000 stores and have 20 to 40,000 screens. And I think it's going to be a huge home run for, DG, given the scale of stores, like your footprint of stores. And we've talked about in-store traffic as this gold mine of opportunity for retail media, because it's truly unique. The walled gardens aren't going to be able to compete well with that, in my opinion. And so it's an opportunity to do really well. So, love to hear as you're thinking, because I think this transitions to is, where does DGMN go in the future and what's on the horizon? And in store, I got to imagine, in screens or whatever it is, audio screens, has got to be on the roadmap.
Well, so our ecosystem today is we partner with Neptune and Vestcom. There's a number of different in-store signage, whether it's the category sign, a shelf talker, a shelf tag. We've got a lot of those tools. It's a very robust and mature ecosystem in our world. And it's a very key tool that both our brands, our merchants, and our shoppers use to help find products, again, save money, look at comparison shop and look at those deals. And then we've been running a pilot this year. And by the way, pilot in our terms is 6,000 stores.
Oh, wow.
So we've
got
by
the way, for the non-retailers of the world, 6,000 is a crap ton.
Yeah. So we have not told the story well in market, I think, because it's a big untapped opportunity even right now today that's live. And so we're going to be continuing to lean into things that we think help differentiate us. The ability to measure our entire ecosystem, both in store and online, and how those in-store media tactics work together is a big focus of my team and I.
I mean, as we dive into more in-store opportunities, Tom, I think we're going to need to do a field trip. We'll do a walk and talk around the store to really talk about this, because Sir Marzano from eMarketer, her biggest complaint is like, people announce they're rolling out in store and they got 2 stores out of 4,000. And if you're saying, no, Todd, I've got hundreds, thousands of stores and avails, like it'll be great to do a follow-up, as kind of to this discussion and sort of, in detail. So I'm setting you up, Tom, for a field trip.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to accept yet, but anytime you want me in Goodlettsville, I'll be down there. I don't know, when do you get down there? I don't even know if you live there yet, but
out there all the time. Yeah. So, a couple times a month, spend time with my team there. But we're right now, especially as in the season that we're in, of both planning for next year, working with our partners, and also like helping the brands figure out their annual plan for next year. A lot of time on the road, was at grocery shop, and obviously at the Ascendant Network, and we've got CES coming up. So
we'll see you there.
I mean, yeah. You guys, one of the things that, and actually I was going to get to, right? We got CES coming up, NRF, you've got Shop Talk in March next year, which is one of the things that last year at CES is a couple of the retailers built a showcase retail media store to walk their vendors through. And I mean, Las Vegas has DGs, and it might make sense to do something like that, whether around NRF, whether about Shop Talk or around CES, is to do that because I think it would be great to showcase. And I think we're going to see more of this, like just putting it in front of media buyers to realize, look at these cool things that are coming. Like I am so geeked out about in store as being a digital guy, because the connection, like the targeting, to be able to do targeting as someone's walking down the aisle, and conquest ads and promotion ads, and in terms of, this is really what programmatic was meant for, is like these real time unique opportunities that can't be really managed any other way. This has been the promise of digital media for 25 years, and we're going to finally see it in the retailer store. It's going to be so cool to see it happen.
Yeah, and I started my career in radio. So you think about how much fun that is for me now to have that audio back in my life, in my portfolio, but also with now the power of that first party data to measure it. Because in radio, back when I was selling it, you measured it based on whether or not the ad ran, and by these tiny panels of whether or not people
the
actually
Arbitron
said they
panels
listened.
And things, the in-car stuff. Yeah, no, it's super cool of what we're going to be able to do with audio and video in store and promotions. And Tom likes to talk about the e-tags,
the ESLs.
There's so much cool stuff that's going to be happening. Real-time promotions, real-time coupons, real-time audio based on foot traffic. It's going to be
I said
what happens with this stuff.
Todd just makes like a whole different I just mentioned in-store. He's ready.
Well, no, in terms of like my example is, I'm a media guy, and thinking about targeting and how is this stuff, and the one I like to talk about is, if you've ever been in some of the rides at Disney, the Rock and Roll roller coaster is a great example. When you come through the queue, the signs will mention people in line, right? You'll see your name as you walk by an electronic messaging board. And imagine your ability to go down the store and say, hey, Todd, would you like 15% off today on this item? As you're doing that, like, that's where this gets real. The first time you see it,
full minority
factor, but once you're used to it, it's being like, oh, yeah, thanks, right? Hey, you bought this, we saw you bought Tide last week. Would you like if you want to try today and get 25% off, like, holy cow. Or if you like this other brand that we've got in, especially because of the rotating inventory that you guys have, some amazingly cool stuff that's going to, I think, emerge in these environments.
I totally agree. You can tell why I was excited and why, even though I've only been here 4 months, we're deep in the weeds, and really excited about 2026 and the things we're working on.
Well, I think the other follow-on there is that, going back to the tech stack is, and to DG's credit, DG is investing in real tech platforms, right? These are the leaders of the industry, the Kevels, the Criteos, the whatever. And I think that's another thing, which is credit to DG, which is, I think we think of them as like, oh, the discount store. But behind the scenes is a clearly a company that's willing to invest in the platforms and tools necessary to do something well. And so I think that's an interesting perception, which is, you know what? They're a real considerate company willing to invest in real platforms to deliver value to their customers. And so I think that's another thing here is the takeaway, which is they're not the discount provider, right? In the way that they're running cheap stuff.
Well, I think
they're a legitimate company running a very sophisticated business and offering sophisticated tools to their customers.
So I think the way they thread the needle there, and this is potentially a theme for this, is doing more with less. And I think the customers of DG, the BFFs, have to do more with less because they may be on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. DG has always, bought places like the old Blockbusters and then renovated them. And, they've taken in these capabilities you talked about, Neptune and Vestcom. So it's starting with the cardboard or starting with the stickers, but you're going to get there. And so I think my last question for you is sort of, when you look at the future of this, as you get to investment grade with brands, is it like multi-touch attribution? Is that sort of like how do you get it to a place where you're not overspending, you're using good partners, like Todd said, but you're making this work in an economical way? Because it seems like DG is very good at doing that.
Yeah. And my mission really is how do we help serve others? That's what we do as a company. Specifically, my role, my job is to serve our advertisers and make sure that they've got the right tools that they can better serve our customers. And as you're looking at all the different levers in the ecosystem, I think it's really important to be able to look at all those tools and figure out, based on your marketing need, what are you trying to accomplish? What is the right tool? Because sometimes you have to be right there at the shelf because that is a very price conscious trip. It's a very price conscious consumer. And that's the moment of truth there, the zero moment of truth, as we like to talk about. But working backwards and up from there if they don't know your product is in the store, if they don't know that product is available or that you have a new offer or an exclusive flavor, then you have to tell that story digitally. But how that all comes together so that we can maximize the investments are a key part of what we're trying to do, because it helps us together as we partner with our brands to grow our business together. And again, better serve our customers. So, those are the core things that we're focused on. And, I'm excited. We even just, I didn't even talk about this earlier, but we even just announced we're part of IAB. So not only are we trying to do
That's a big deal.
and how we partner, we're a member of the IAB for the first time ever. And that's an investment into our industry, because we know that they're helping us by having the standards out there that we're contributing to and following to help deliver those results to our advertisers.
And it's acting like a publisher, because the whole point of and again, that's my point. It's a big deal. Is not all retailers are doing that yet, and so it speaks to DG's willingness to again tell them, to the advertising community, no, we're looking to be a valued player and follow the rules and standards that everyone else does. To your point, to make it easy to work with us. And I think that's a big lesson to other retailers, which is, if you want to be successful, to, deliver a good platform, but also make it easy to work with in the way that you already buy media. And I think that's, you guys clearly seem to be doing a lot in that regard. And, it's a good roadmap to others.
Well, speaking of roadmaps, as you said at the beginning, Tom, I'm glad we got a chance to catch up. Todd, I think you can see now why we get excited about talking about this stuff, and specifically DGMN. And I think you said it's the first of a multi-part series here. So,
we're dying to see it. Like, the walk and talk is absolutely needs to get done, and look forward to seeing the video of you walking around the store with Tom to sort of showcase this, because that whole next part of the journey of retail media is going to be so cool and so different, and really an extension of where digital advertising is going in a really interesting way, where digital meets physical and IRL. Super excited about that.
Yeah, Middlemen we're investing in more gear. We're going to be doing more in-person stuff. So stay tuned for that, audience, in 2026. But thank you, Austin, for joining us on the Middlemen.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Great talking with you.